Okay, for this next assignment, we're going to be working with creating an original pattern that's going to be used for a couple of different art projects. So the first thing that we're going to be doing today is designing a pattern that you're going to be creating as a drawing. And then eventually, the pattern that you come up with, you're going to be printing and carving onto this piece of rubber to make a big stamp. So we'll be doing some printmaking with this stamp, and then we're also going to be able to use this stamp to press into your clay project when we build that after spring break. So the design that you create, you really do need to be happy with it because we're using it for a couple of different art projects. So when you look at these different patterns, what I want you to pay attention to is that they have been created by drawing shapes to start out with. And these will become most successful as a stamp that you carve on the rubber with if your lines are smoother and straighter. So you have to imagine that you can cut this edge with a pair of scissors. That is an easy line that I can cut with scissors. This is an easy line I can cut with scissors. What's going to be very difficult to cut with scissors, if you draw your design with too many small jaggedy lines. I cannot cut that line easily with scissors, therefore I'm going to really struggle carving that design out of my rubber. Another thing that I'll really struggle with is if I have loops like this. I cannot cut these loops out with scissors, so I can't carve that out easily with rubber. So the best thing to remember is to keep your lines pretty smooth and straight. Circles are also going to be kind of tricky to work with, so I wouldn't work with too many circular lines just because that becomes a little more complicated. So to get started, you're going to see this worksheet and you have two different grids on it. The grid printed is the same size as the rubber stamp, so that's why you need to be using the entire space of the printed grid. You'll notice that one side has a line printed across the edge. That was from the copy machine, so ignore this small line, use the outside edge. Okay, when I start this, the directions say that I need to draw inside one of these 6 boxes to begin with. I need to use at least 6 lines total and at least 3 different types of lines. When you draw, make sure your lines touch the side of the box. And I'm going to demonstrate how you draw one box and then use tracing paper to print it in all the other ones. So when I do this, I like to just start with shapes. My shapes need to be drawn from the side edges, and I'm remembering that I need to be able to cut this out. So I want smoother, straighter lines. Now that shape was just made with a line. So I have started to meet the requirements of 6 lines total, but I need 3 different types of lines. So that means my lines should be changing in directions. My line should start from each side of the box, and it's okay to have shapes inside of shapes. You just have to make sure that they don't touch so close so that you can be able to cut this out. Okay. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 7 lines, so I have met the requirement. The other thing that you want to pay attention to, this needs to kind of become like a maze. You have to imagine that I can walk around each shape easily. I don't want to draw this in a way, look at this box, where my lines all touch and connect like a puzzle, because you have to be able to carve out these shapes, and this is going to become really difficult if all your lines connect, because this is not a maze. I cannot walk through here to get through here because there's a wall. I cannot walk over here because there's a wall. So you have to make sure that you've got some open space in between your shapes and lines so that you can actually travel around this. Okay, so now here's how we use tracing paper. I'm going to put the tracing paper on top and you're going to be able to see through it. First thing you do is trace the box. And you should be using a regular pencil. Mechanical pencil is too sharp and pointy and it rips through the paper too easily. When you draw on top, you want to press as hard as you can because you want a lot of dark pencil lead on this tracing paper. Alright, now that it's traced, I'm ready to print. So I'm going to turn it over backwards. I'm going to be able to see through it to line it up. And these lines should cross over the edge and they should line up. So now I'm going to draw right on top and I want to press hard. I have to make sure my line goes right on top of the first line because right now what's happening is the pencil lead is coming off the back side and leaving a print on the paper. And I don't need to trace the box again. That was just to help me line it up. So when I'm done, you can see I'm kind of going over each line a couple times. When I'm done, you'll see that there's a print on the paper below. Now the print is never going to be as dark as your regular pencil drawing, but it should be dark enough that you can see the design and where to outline it to bring the design to the surface. So what you're creating is symmetry, or a pattern made from symmetry. So if this is the position I just traced it in, I'm going to flip it over, line it up on the edge, and I'm going to draw it again. And I'm going to repeat this in all 6 boxes, turning it over each time, making sure my lines are connecting from the box next to it, because you truly want to see a pattern. Okay, so there's the print down there, and I'm going to repeat this all the way around. So when you finish your first set of 6, then what I want you to do is come up with a totally different design in the second set over here, so that you have 2 good options to choose to work with for this assignment. So your next drawing, you're going to repeat in the similar setup. You're going to draw just in 1 box, use at least 6 lines total, at least 3 different types of lines. Make sure the lines are drawn from the side of the box and that your lines are not so complicated and small and close together that you cannot cut them out with scissors. Okay, so you can kind of see what that pattern is starting to look like. So then over here, I might come up with another idea. So I'm drawing my lines from the sides. I'm really trying to fill this space equally. I can travel around each shape without hitting a wall. So then I would get my new tracing paper, trace the box, press hard. Now I'm going to trace my drawing, pressing hard. Okay, so I'm going to flip this over, line it up. I'm going to draw it again, and it's going to start to make a print. So this is how we're going to proceed with this step of the project. You truly should see a pattern emerge if you're being consistent. If you need help, just ask me. If you're not being able to print, it's probably because you forgot to turn your tracing paper over backwards, or you weren't drawing exactly on top of the line that you drew first, and that's why your pencil lead didn't print. So this is what this one is going to start to look like. And then I would continue this all the way down into the rest of the set of 6. So again, here was one finished example. You can kind of see the process that I used. Okay, when you have finished your 2 designs and you have decided which one you liked best, what you're going to do is finish visualizing what the rest of this stamp is going to look like. So when we look at a rubber stamp, There's surfaces that are high and surfaces that are low. The high surface, when you put the ink on it, is what's going to make a print when you stamp it. The low surfaces are not going to have the ink stuck to it, and that's what we're going to be carving away from this block. So this is the size of your printing stamp, and you're going to be printing this design on the stamp, and then you're going to be using a carving tool to remove areas that are going to be the low spots that are not going to print. So you want to visualize that on this design. So when you look at your drawing, you need to figure out what parts of the design do you want to have ink adhere to it and print to. And you can also look at this design and decide, is that detailed enough? And if you want to add more pieces, then go ahead and add more pieces. So I think these shapes are a little too full. So what I might do is just get my tracing paper again, and I'm going to trace that edge. And you can use your original one. I just don't have my original with me at the moment. So now I'm going to maybe draw in another type of line, just to kind of make this a little more detailed. Okay, so then I would need to reprint that on the other pieces. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Turn it over, print it again. And then down here. Okay, so now to finish off the rough draft plan, you need to create a visual on what this is going to look like as a carved stamp. So what you're going to do is, with your pencil, you're going to shade in all the areas that are going to be the low spots that you're going to carve away. So what's going to stay is the white spots are going to represent the high areas of your stamp, and those are areas that are going to receive the ink. So I'm just going to take my pencil and just shade this around on all 6 blocks. And again, this is representing areas that are going to be the low spots that we're carving away. And if you notice, every other space has to be light, dark, in order for this to work. So this is what one box would look like. And I've already completed this design as another sample. So all the white areas are going to be the high spots of my stamp. The low areas are colored in so that when I transfer this onto my block, I have an exact plan of what I'm carving away and what I'm leaving for my stamp. When you finish this, keep it in your art folder. We'll be carving next class.